Hi everyone, it's Jung here for Hip Kit Club. Today I'm using the December 2019 kits and I was challenged to make cards with interactive elements. So of course when I thought of interactive elements, I thought of my favorite cards to make, which are shaker cards. And so I had originally planned to use one of these frames that are Hip Kit Club exclusives and perhaps a chipboard snowman from the Crate Paper line. So I'm going to set that aside and use a scrap piece of white cardstock, and I'm going to do some ink blending for my background. And since I had planned to use a snowman, I wanted to make it look like a wintry sky. I am a card maker and I love making inked backgrounds, so I'm going to use the Distress Oxide inks. Some of these were from previous past kits and some of them are from my stash, and I'm using a foam ink blending tool to create a gradient sky. Now I kind of made a mistake because I had originally wanted to start with a pink, and so I'm just going to flip it around, start with pink again, and I believe that color is Sponge Sugar. And then I'm going to use that blue I was using, which is Tumbled Glass, and go towards the middle there. And then I'm going to finish off with the darker purpley blue, which is Blueprint Sketch, excuse me. And I'm going to finish it off and make the majority of the sky be this color. Okay, so here's my panel all done. I am going to spritz it with some water, that's just plain water on my brush, and kind of give it a snowy look. Once you spritz water on it and then kind of dab it up with a paper towel, it kind of bleaches the ink. And I really like that look, and especially for wintry cards. If I had used finer droplets, it definitely would have given that snowy look. And I'm just going to heat set that because I plan on doing some stamping and heat embossing, and I need my panel to be good and dry. So I used my embossing powder to kind of test out the panel to make sure it was dry and that the powder wasn't sticking anywhere. And then I used my powder tool to kind of get rid of all the stickiness off the panel. And now I'm going to be using this Crate Paper stamp set, and I'm just going to be using some of the snowflake images, and I want to really add to that snowing effect on the background, so I'm just going to randomly stamp these snowflakes on the background with my Versamark ink, and I'll do a couple at a time, and then I will add the embossing powder, and then I'll use another stamp and do those a couple of times with the Versamark ink, and then powder them. And I'll continue this until I have just a random assortment of snowflakes on the background. Once I stamp and powder up all the snowflake images, I'm going to take my warmed up heat gun and heat set the powder. And I love how my background turned out. Normally I like to stamp off the edge of the background of the cardstock, but I knew I was going to be putting a frame on top, and so I didn't need to do that this time. So like I said before, I had originally planned to use one of these Hip Kit Club exclusive frames, but then I decided that it was covering up too much of this background, and I just loved how it turned out so much that I decided to make a frame from some pattern paper myself, which is a little bit bigger, and that way it wouldn't cover up too much of the background. I'm going to take this Heidi Swapp pattern paper, and I'll be using the more subtle pattern, and I'm going to trim it down to about the size of my background panel that I made. And then I'm going to switch to my Friskers paper trimmer so I can cut out the inside, and I'm going to make it look like a Polaroid frame, just like the Hip Kit Club frames were cut. Okay, so I wanted more of the pink showing, so I'm going to trim off a little bit from the top of the ink blended panel. And I'm going to put a lot of double-sided tape on this because it is a little warped from the heat setting that I did. And I want to make sure that it adheres flat to my card base. Okay, I'm going to set that aside, and then I am going to attach a piece of acetate that I had already trimmed down to the size of the frame, and I'm going to adhere it to the back of the frame. And that's going to be kind of the clear piece that will contain all these sequins. And now I'm going to be using some foam tape so that I could adhere the framed piece to the top of my ink blended piece, and that way the sequins can shake around. I hope I'm making sense. You'll see what I mean. When I adhere the foam tape, I'm making sure that there are no gaps because you don't want any sequins to fall out. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my ink blended piece to the card base, and it's an A2 sized white card base that I made using the white cardstock from the cardstock kit. And I'm just going to stick it down and kind of make it even. Next, I will put down some sequins. I'm using some sequins that came in a previous Hip Kit Club kit. So I'm just going to choose some of the colors that I want to use. I'm choosing the ones that kind of match my background, whites and blues and pinks. And then I also got this idea to use this snow that I used in a Christmas craft with my kids. And I just picked that up at a craft store, and it honestly looks like shredded pieces of plastic. So I thought that would look really cute in my shaker card, and I had a bunch left over. Next, I'm going to carefully adhere the frame over my sequins, trying to make it as even as possible. And then I'm going to shake things around to make sure that the sequins have enough room to shake. So I had planned to use that smaller chipboard snowman, but it has a hunter green scarf on and it didn't really match my background. Then I tried the larger snowman, but it also has like a mustard yellow scarf and it didn't match my background either. So then I looked through the Hip Kit Club exclusive ephemera pack and I found this other snowman, and he has a pink hat on which matches my background and a light blue scarf. And then I also found this cute little penguin. I thought he would be really cute with a snowman as well. And then for my sentiment, I'm using that Warmest Wishes speech bubble, and I'm popping them all on top of the sequin shaker frame with foam tape. For my next interactive card, I decided that I wanted to use one of the Hip Kit Club exclusive tags and make a vellum envelope for it. So I'm going to be using the vellum from the kits and my 123 punch board to make the smallest envelope that I can according to the directions that you see there in blue on the left. Okay, so I'm going to finish scoring and punching the envelope off camera. And this is what I'm left with, and I want to orient it in the vertical fashion so the tag will slip in from the top. And so I am going to fold one flap underneath, and then I'm going to use this blue card base that I made with the cardstock from the cardstock kit. And then I didn't want to stick the envelope just on the blue cardstock, so I needed something for the background, and I decided to use this crepe paper star paper. But then once I laid it down, the tag just kind of disappeared, so I needed something bolder, and I chose this navy blue one, which is also a Hip Kit Club exclusive. And I'm just going to go ahead and trim down the star pattern paper piece to fit my background. I also added some wonky stitching around the edges of the pattern paper piece, and then I will add the pattern paper to my card base with foam tape. Once I adhere the pattern paper, I'm going to figure out what I want to put on this tag. I'm going to need to put a sentiment of some kind, and so I'm just looking through the Hip Kit Club exclusives, and I decided to use the sticker sheets. I also needed to figure out how I was going to adhere the vellum pocket together. I needed something for the adhesive to hide behind. As you know, you would be able to see through the vellum. And so I decided to use these crepe paper stars that I fussy cut from the foiled pattern paper, and so I kind of lined out where I would put the stars, and then I put my adhesive there because I knew the stars would kind of hide them. Now I'm going to add a little ribbon for my tag. This ribbon was included in the December Documented 2018 kits, and it's a white glitter ribbon. So on one side it's has glitter, and I'm just going to attach that with my tiny attacher stapler, and then I trimmed the top ends. And now I'm going to adhere the vellum pocket to my pattern paper background with just one strip of the adhesive, and my tag will cover that. Next, I'm going to adhere some of the fussy cut stars, and I decided that they were all, the ones that I had left anyways, were all the same size, and I wanted to vary it up a little bit. So I fussy cut one more, and it's a bigger sized one. And I'm going to adhere it to the vellum pocket with foam squares. And then I go back to my tag. Sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I decided that I wanted to use cheers as my sentiment, and so at first I grabbed this coffee cup, but then I changed my mind and I'm going to use the little champagne flutes instead, and I think that looks cuter together. And then I'm pretty much finished with the tag portion. Now I'm going to go back to those fussy cut stars, and I'm going to put a total of 3 stars on my vellum envelope. And I will be using some double-sided tape and foam squares. And then I will pop some enamel dots in the center, and I really like the shine that it adds. And then this card is done. I really like how the foiled pattern paper and the enamel dots just add something extra to the card. For my last card, I decided to make a shaped card, and I'm using my largest heart die that I have here. And so I've already folded the card stock, and I'm going to die cut it to where the die hangs off the top a little bit, just so that it doesn't die cut the fold line. I hope that makes sense. You can see that I die cut it out, and it's still a card. And that's because I let it hang off the edge a little bit. So then I die cut this pattern paper from the next size heart that I have, and I believe that's a Heidi Swap pattern paper. Yep. And I decided that I'm going to make a winter themed Valentine's Day card, and so I fussy cut those 2 little snow man and woman from the crepe paper pattern paper. I still needed a sentiment, and I wanted a little heart, so I pulled some out from the Hip Kit Club exclusive ephemera pack. And then I wanted to dress up the background heart a little bit, and so I'm going back to the crepe paper stamp, and I'm going to add some subtle snowflakes to the background, and I'm just going to use that Distress Oxide ink that I used on my first card, the Spun Sugar, to add some subtle snowflakes to the background. Once I have my background all stamped out, I'm going to lay everything out to make sure I like how everything is spaced. And then I will adhere the stamped background to my heart card base with some fun foam. Once I have my pattern paper background adhered to the card base, I'm going to adhere my snow people onto the card. And I'm going to use foam squares for those. I already have my snow lady on there, and now I'm going to put my snowman right next to her. And next I'm going to take a glitter brush pen and just add a little sparkle. You won't be able to see it, but hopefully when I tilt up the card later, you'll be able to see the glitter. Next, I'm going to adhere the sentiment, which says warm hearts, and I'm going to use some more foam tape for that. And then lastly, I will adhere the heart right between them, and that's from the ephemera pack as well. I really love how this card turned out. It didn't really take much product. You could have done this card with just some leftover pieces of your kits. And here is my card all finished. And here's one more look at all 3 of my cards. The shaker card, I added a piece of twine, some white twine. And then my vellum card. And then my winter Valentine card. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and got inspired to make some cards of your own. I will leave all sorts of links in the info bar below. I will leave the Hip Kit Club website. Oh, right here I'm just showing you that I added some snow with a gel pen. Anyway, so I will leave the link to the Hip Kit Club website in the link below. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Hip Kit Club YouTube channel, and here are some photos for you. Thank you again for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.